Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, the show that is part of the Simply Luxurious Life online destination, cultivating true contentment, the art of living a life of quality over quantity. Visit the blog, The Simply Luxurious Life, at our simplified URL, tsll.co or thesimplyluxuriouslife.com to find the show notes for each podcast episode, as well as much more weekly content to elevate your everyday and deepen your contentment. From a Monday motivational post, recipes, videos of the cooking show series, style and decor inspiration, French and British inspired content, and readers' favorite regular weekly post, This and That, which is posted each Friday morning. Now to today's episode. Welcome to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. I'm your host, Shannon Ables. And whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, or sitting down with a hot cup of tea or a café au lait, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to the 329th episode of The Simple Sophisticate, and welcome to the 4th annual British Week. Yes, we are celebrating all things British this week on the Simply Luxurious Life blog, and that includes 2 new episodes this week because it's British Week, and both episodes, which includes today's, are all about Britain. If you haven't already stopped by the blog, the week kicked off yesterday with a brand new illustration by the illustrator who came up with the cover of my new book, The Road de la Papillon, and the other 13 illustrations within the book. Sarah Locker did an amazing job, and I am so excited to reveal it. There's so many details, and I share where each one was inspired. And in fact, because it was inspired from my trip to England, which is the source of inspiration for this episode, if you too have a trip you've taken or will be taking, and of course, you're probably going to capture a lot of photos on this trip, Sarah does an amazing job of compiling a handful of images. You can hand select them or you can let her pick them. She did both for this particular illustration for me, and she can create a piece of art unique for you to hold those memories, to be hung on a wall, to be framed and placed wherever or however you want. So keep that in mind. I provided the links in the welcome post that was posted on Sunday to her website. You certainly can explore this. She's an amazing, talented artist who knows her craft and knows the minute details of Mother Nature, whether it's the animals, the plants, and puts that detail in her art. Anyway, today's episode is all about the life lessons that were found, discovered, came to my mind as I was traveling in England this past April. Now, many listeners and readers of the blog as well will know that I do this frequently. I do this every year on my birthday. I also do it whenever I travel. Sometimes I share these lessons in detailed lists, as I've done here on this podcast and the blog, and sometimes I don't, but most of the time I do. And I wanted to share with you the 20 life lessons I discovered on my recent trip to England. So that's what we're going to focus on today. And be sure to check out the show notes because there will be pictures that accompany these lessons. But also, we have a petit plaisir, and it is all England, absolutely. So do stay tuned. It's a movie I think you will find great joy to watch and delight and uplift your confidence in humanity. But I'll share that at the end of today's episode. We have 20 life lessons to get to, and so let's dive in. To feel intrinsically connected with a culture other than the one you were raised in involves the feeling of a coming home in a way that seems impossible until you feel it firsthand, deep in the marrow of your bones. And that might sound exaggerated, but when you feel this about another place in this world, other than where you were raised, where you grew up, it is deep, it is profound, it is earth-shaking with regards to you and your being. And it is earth-shaking in the most wonderful way. It's as though pieces fall into place. As I share in detail in the introduction of the month of May in my new book, The Road to Le Papillon, Daily Meditations on True Contentment, my first trip and time spent in the English countryside spoke to my innermost true self in a way I didn't expect, but completely understood. Spending only, but entirely, 4 days in North Devon in a country home aloft the hills overlooking the Bristol Channel without another house in sight, I went about my everydays as I would if I were here at my home in Bend. And it was pure bliss, all in my own company, and not for a moment did I feel lonely. Quite the opposite, in fact. I felt enriched, I felt soothed, I felt finally in so many ways I had not felt entirely before. I felt at home. Now, this was before I found Le Papillon, as I share in the book. And to really quickly share with you what's in the book, the entire month of May is all about Britain. It's all focused on how Britain played a role in helping me find my true contentment. So that trip began and happened before I found my house that I call Le Papillon here in Bend. But what it did, and I share this more in depth in the book, was remind me of the essence and the elements that made me feel at home. And so I endeavored to find a home here in Bend that could incorporate those at all possible, in any way that it could. And it really does have so many of the qualities that I love. Brene Brown writes in Braving the Wilderness, The Quest for Belonging and the Courage to Stand Alone, that a feeling of loneliness stems from spending time in places and with people, quote, that don't feel alive with connection, end quote. She continues to share neuroscience researcher John Cacioppo of the University of Chicago's definition of loneliness, which is, quote, perceived social isolation. Brown goes on to say, when we feel disconnected, that is when we're feeling that perceived social isolation. While reading these words recently, it made all the more sense to me why I feel so wonderfully alive, even and perhaps especially when I am in my own company while traveling both to France and Britain, and then as well when I return and am spending time, my everydays, at Le Papillon, a sanctuary that was customized to welcome both cultures into my everyday life, a home I share with no other human, but of course my pups, and the birds and the animals and plants that hold my attention, fascinate and delight me, and visit or bloom when consistent, thoughtful care is given. Equally so, to further acknowledge the truth in Brown's discoveries, I can feel lonely when I am spending time with people who, or am in an environment that lacks a curiosity or appreciation, or at the very least a respect for a culture I am so fond of and grateful to have found, because it brings me to life. It makes me feel at home. Unconsciously, I have known my own company is quite sweet, as I give myself permission to follow my curiosities without judgment, to explore, to wander and learn. And conversely, my loneliest days have been spent with other people, whether in relationships of all different natures. And I do mean spending in this particular time, because it does feel that I'm not sharing something in that moment with people that make me feel, and it's not to their fault, it's just an awareness within myself. I feel disconnected. I feel I can't be understood. No matter how hard I try, I can't be understood. And so I do feel my time is being spent, not shared. So when I'm in these situations, indirectly or directly, I feel as though I'm being denied, or they're dissuading me from celebrating the life I love living, the life that truly nurtures me to be fully Shannon. And again, this is less and less and less in my life, because I've realized this now. I'm more consciously aware of those environments and those people, and I have stepped away from them, either by just simply not choosing to spend time with them or moving away, or having to either have very serious conversations and moving away. Returning to England this past April was life-lifting. Noting not having visited since 2017, which I didn't realize consciously is nearly 5 years, ended a drought of British culture, seen with my own eyes. that I needed more than I realized. It was a figurative, deep breath of fresh air that, upon taking in, immediately brought a smile to my face and a calm to my being. While I didn't spend my time as I most enjoy for most of my days when I am in England, which is to rent a vacation rental out in the countryside and go about my many days just savoring the everyday routines and visiting an occasional destination of interest, I was in Britain. So that's all that mattered. And that was so important. Just to get a taste of it again after these near 5 years. I know I'll return, and hopefully far sooner than 5 years' time. And when I do, I'll be able to partake in that particular way of soaking it all in. What I did this time, as I've shared on Instagram and on previous posts these past couple of weeks, is introduce someone who's never been there to the culture. And to me, that was also so much fun. I saw places and spent time partaking in activities that further introduced me to a culture specifically that I have never done before. I had never gone to a high tea at Claridge's, and we did that. That was so just awe-inspiring and delicious, of course. And I'm grateful for that opportunity to see a culture in a different way than I normally would do. And that's good too. In today's episode, I'd like to share with you 20 life lessons learned during these 3.5 days that I had in Britain. Not many, but enough, more than enough, to just simply be reminded of why I love this culture so much. I was both in London and in Kent as we took a train ride out to the southeast countryside of England and spent the night as we were intent to visit Sissinghurst Castle Garden. And oh, what a treat that was. So let's take a look at the list. Number 1, afternoon tea is always a good idea, whether a formal occasion at a special location or at home in your own company. Now, I shared in the introductory post to this year's British Week that tea in my everyday life is just non-negotiable. It has to happen, and it happens about 3 times a day. But the afternoon tea, especially now that I work from home, I'm finding very nourishing. And that's why I say afternoon tea is always a good idea, because it provides a breath to stop, to slow down, to hold yourself in the present and just slowly sip. If you have a nibble, to nibble on whatever it might be. And to be still. Maybe you sit outside if it's beautiful weather. Maybe it's, you're at work and so you step into another place where you're away from your paperwork, or you just put your paperwork away for 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour. Depends on the situation, depends on where you are. And if it's in a formal afternoon tea, it could go on for a couple hours. But it is a ritual that reminds me of the pace of my life. And the pace of my life has slowed down in the past couple weeks, and I needed it to slow down, and I'm grateful it is slowing down. And I feel mentally so much stronger and less on edge, even though I know there are times in our life that we have to go hard and go strong and really dig in and invest and sacrifice. I know that, but if we're doing that constantly, we are actually doing ourselves a disservice. And knowing when to shift is sometimes really, really hard, but we do need to shift. Anyway, afternoon tea, if you can make time for it, that tells me that you are more aware in your daily life, and you will know if you need to shift, if you need to slow down, if you are already going at a good, healthy pace, because you have a self-awareness to say, well, gotta have afternoon tea, folks, slowing down right here. And I think that's a ritual that for America is hard to do. But I know that when I take a break in the early afternoon, because my tea break is about 1 or 2 o'clock, and I know in Britain it's more 3, 4 o'clock. But for me, 1 or 2 o'clock is a perfect time in the middle of the work week, because I find I get more rejuvenation later in the day if I take a good long break about 1 or 2 o'clock. And I do mean a good long break. So something to think about there. That is a life lesson that was confirmed to me while I was traveling. Speaking of afternoon teas, and I will have a detailed post about this later in the week, we enjoyed afternoon tea at Claridge's, and it happened to fall on Easter that we were there. So we had an Easter afternoon tea, and oh my gosh, it was just exquisite. I have a few pictures I'll share, but also walk you through how it unfolded and what it was like, and the menu as well. It was just a special, special occasion. We were there for a good 2 to 3 hours, and we were not rushed, and it was just quite special. All right, so that's number 1. Number 2, taking a long hot bath in between day outings and evening plans, accompanied by classical music, is restorative and energizing. Now, this is again tailored to me, but I think for a lot of us, especially when we're traveling, but even if it's just at home, if you've had a busy, long work day, or if you're traveling and you've been busy going and seeing and experiencing or just on your feet, even if you know you have plans in the evening, even if you know, I'm going to take a shower and then we'll go, maybe give yourself another hour. And I did this on the last full day that we were in London. So we were to fly home the next day to the States. And this was our last day of this 10-day, 9-day trip. And we were in London, and we had come from Canterbury back to London. And I had tootled around Piccadilly Circus and on my own, and then with my mother as well for a while. Went to a late lunch at the Wolseley. And then we were to go to the theater. We were going to go to the Mousetrap, which was just a couple blocks away from where we were staying at the Savoy. And I said, I'm not taking a shower. I'm not rushing this. They have these 6-foot-long bathtubs at the Savoy. And I am almost 6 foot. I'm 5'11". Having a 6-foot bathtub is an ultimate luxury. You just don't find them. I don't even have 6-foot bathtubs in my house. And I just remodeled my house, but the space in my room would not allow me to have 6 foot. Anyway, long story short, I took a very nice long hot bath. The water running was just so soothing. The space was white marble, calming, clean. And then the music just filled the air. And I was just restored to be able to fully appreciate the evening that I had been looking forward to the entire trip. I had intentionally planned for us to go slow down and watch a favorite theater play that I had long wanted to watch, where we weren't being super active. We're just sitting and being passive, right? We're just watching a play. But I knew that would be a great way to end the trip, and I wanted to be fully present for it. So basically, anytime that you know you're going to have a full day, but you also have plans in the evening, give yourself an hour or two to not just rush through your shower. If you can, take a bath and make a moment out of it. And you will be more restored, at least I was, upon doing so. So that's number 2. Number 3, take the tube, also known formally as the Underground in London, to swiftly and inexpensively move about London. I love the tube. Of all 3 subways that I have taken, New York's, London's, and Paris's, the Metro, I love the tube. The tube to me is so easy to navigate and simple and easy to follow. Grab yourself an Oyster card. You order it online. If you don't live in London, you order it online before you travel. Let them ship it to you, and then just keep it forever. I've had mine since 2017, and I've been using Oyster cards since 2012, and I just restock it every time I'm there. You can now use your contactless debit or credit cards. The only thing is, when you do that, is you might get a fee every time if it's an international card, meaning you don't live in England. So it would be a little bit more expensive than an Oyster card. But it does the same thing. You scan it the same way you would do the Oyster card. And that's new since I traveled there in 2017, to use your contactless cards. And they are easy. So my mom was using her contactless card, and I was using my Oyster card, and it's an easy in and out, going in and coming out of each station. But it is a very simple way to get around the city, because you're going to walk a lot anyway. But definitely get yourself, if you're someone who travels to London at all, get an Oyster card online. I'll provide a link on the show notes. Have it shipped to you, and then just restock it every time you go. And it just is a great way, wherever you are, to get to far-reaching parts of the city that you just don't have time to walk to, or don't want to walk to, or don't want to have to pay a cab to get you there. The black cabs are great. They are excellent, but they are expensive compared to the tube. just don't be intimidated by the tube. If you're not someone who takes that kind of transportation, trust me, I felt so safe. We'll talk a little bit more about the cleanliness, depending on what kind of clothes you want to wear. I had an interesting experience there, but I learned my lesson. But I've always felt safe, always had a great time. Even when we were packed in like sardines during the Olympics in 2012, which we were literally just like sardines in these cars. Didn't matter. I felt very safe. And it went really well. Mind the gap. Remember to mind the gap. Okay, that's number 3. Take the tube. 4, we're staying on the tube for a moment. Don't wear exposed fine linens on the tube. In other words, wear a coat over any nice linens you're wearing, a nice dress, a nice jacket. And the reason for that is to protect from any loose soot that may fall when you're there. Now, I share this because if you haven't followed me on Instagram, I need to tell you a quick story. So we were going to our Easter afternoon tea. So Sunday, it was a beautiful day in London. There was no rain in London while we were there, although I love rain. There was no rain, and I was fine with that. I was wearing a white silk blazer, or ivory silk blazer. And we went to get on the Charing Cross tube right there by the National Gallery. And it was also playoff time for the football season. And Crystal Palace fans came into the station on the way to the game. So it was in the afternoon, on the way to the game. And this particular station had a lot of exposed pipes and guts basically in the ceiling. And when all this raucous noise came in, and they were fine individuals, nothing horrible and nothing bad happened. They were just all singing in unison. Started shaking, things started to shake, and the soot came loose off the pipes. And I didn't even know this was happening until my mom looked at me and we were getting on the train, and she said, "Shannon, you have black stuff on your face." So I had black stuff on my face, and then I looked at the shoulders of this ivory blazer, and there was black soot dots, just like dust all over, but it was soot. And I was like, oh no. And we were still going to tea. We hadn't got to the tea place. We both dressed nice for the tea, obviously. Anyway, bless the Claridge's hearts. I walked in and the wait staff was asking, "Do you realize that you have," they said it very nicely, as if to say, this is, I thought maybe it was a fashion statement, one waitress said. I was like, "Oh, you're so kind to say that." And they're like, "We can have it cleaned right now for you if you'd like." And of course, I didn't feel comfortable with that because I just had a small little silk camisole underneath, and that would for me be too exposed. But I really appreciated their offering. And I learned from many followers on Instagram and readers of the blog to not wear fine linens on the tube. I think that was the only time I ever had. So I was like, oh, shoot. But the story ends very, very well. And again, the Crystal Palace fans, I actually asked them, "What is this all about? What are you so excited about?" And this older gentleman explained with a smile what it was. And he was very kind. And they were, again, it was actually kind of a unique and lovely experience. But wow, they shook the ceiling. Anyway, I figured that if there is any dry cleaner that knows how to get soot out of clothing, it's probably there in London. So I asked the concierge at the Savoy if they would clean it for me, and they gave it their best shot. And for £24, far less than I expected, they were in 24 hours able to get the soot out of that jacket. And I have since worn that jacket, and I'm so grateful that they were able to get it out. I was really nervous they would. But it would have been a great memory. Anyway, I've gone on too long about that, but that's the lesson. Don't wear fine linens on the tube. Wear a trench over the top, and you'll be fine. And that's not every station that was, the pipes were exposed, but that particular one, just the way it was. Okay, 5. Okay, now we're going to talk about plane travel. So, as many of you may know, I shared prior to arriving in England and London, or England and France, that we flew business class. Now, I booked these tickets way back in September 2021 when prices for business class had just dropped. And I said, okay, that ticket price round trip is less than what I paid last time I went to Paris for an economy premium seat. I'm going to get this business class. And we did. Now, we fly, as you know, from the West Coast. So that is straight shot, a 9 to 10 hour flight. That's a long time. And it can obviously get a heck of a lot longer if you're coming from Hawaii, over and from Australia, so many other places farther than us. It made all the difference to reducing jet lag when we got there. I've never had so little jet lag upon arrival. And also just making the travel day so much more enjoyable because you have the lounges to relax in, the free food at the lounges, and it's less chaotic and less noisy. And for me as a writer and someone who's very introverted and likes to just be in quiet spaces, I thoroughly, and so did my mom, we thoroughly enjoyed it. I will share this with you. The prices online for business class are frightening to look at right now. And again, I paid less than what you're seeing for economy prices for my business class ticket. If you are sincerely interested in getting a business class or first class ticket, please reach out to me directly. I have a travel agent and a source who can help you find the best ticket on the airline you want. We traveled British Airlines. I've also traveled Air France. They get tickets on any flight or on any airlines. Reach out to me directly, and I will give you a source that can help you find a great ticket from a reputable travel agent company specifically dedicated to finding business class and first class tickets at a great price. So email me. All right, that's 5. That's my life lesson. Even if I have to travel a little less often than I would like to Europe, I'm going to be traveling business class. 6. Stepping away from the virtual world regularly strengthens the quality of presence and engagement in the life you have created. Now, I was sharing a decent amount on Instagram while I was traveling, and I kept my regular postings up until the last day. But for a few days there, I was taking pictures, but I turned my phone to airplane mode and I didn't engage with my social media. And it allowed me to be wholly and entirely present. But I found that to be a wonderful way to deepen the experience. And I think that's a great lesson for just everyday life too. What I do at home now in my everyday life, I don't have the ringer turned on anymore. I just don't. So that I control when I check my phone. Now, I know everyone's situation is different. If you have children, it's different. If you have certain situations going on with those people in your life that you're close to, I know it's different. For me, I turn my ringer off and I check my phone when I want to. I also leave my phone in my office, and at a certain point in the day, my office door shuts, my phone stays in my office. And I just sink into the rest of my evening, sans social media, sans technology. And it's really helped me ground myself and savor the life that I love living. Because I know I'll come back to it. I'm not going to be gone for that long. I'll be back the next day, the next morning. But I need to protect my time so that I can show up more fully when I am present, whether it's in person with someone or present when I'm commenting or responding with you all, because I want to be fully present with you. I really appreciate the social media connection with all of the followers and readers of the blog and podcast. But there is a time to rejuvenate, and that means stepping away from social media regularly. So that's number 6. Number 7, the countryside is my jam. From birdsong to rolling hills of green fields, peace is found simply standing still or watching the countryside drift by while on a train. I love the countryside. Whether it's in France or Britain, take me to the country, leave me there. I'll be happy. I get it. I maybe it's because I grew up in the country. I feel comfortable in the country. I love the sounds of the birds, of the breeze. But I also love that you can have such quick and immediate access to the city via the trains in France and in Britain. That is just a wonderful luxury that we don't have here in the States. And so I'm so grateful when I'm over there to be able to spend time in both places. But my extra time, when I find it, when I have it, is definitely in the country. And so I try to savor that, and I also try to bring that into my home here at Le Papillon by having a garden, by spending time outside, just being still as often as I can, whether that's sitting on my front porch, sitting on my garden porch, taking walks in the neighborhood, those kind of things. So that's number 7. Number 8 is to trust what captures your awe. Now, this may be a tangible item that fills a gap in your life or helps elevate your routine. Or it could be something that's less tangible, more conceptual, a piece of art, traditions, natural beauty that just stops you in your tracks. Anything that draws your eye and holds your attention, even if at first you do not know why, hold loosely in your mind this moment, this image, this thing, and explore what is speaking to you. Do not dismiss it. It is speaking to you for a reason. It caught your eye, your attention, your interest for a reason. This happened for me with both tangible things and non-tangible things. We went to Westminster Abbey for Easter service. My mom wanted to go to Easter service. As you all know, I'm agnostic. But I have to say, as someone who studied British history and taught history, it was awe-inspiring to be in this abbey where monarchs have been crowned since, 1011? And just amazed by the architecture and the art and the symbolism and the messaging as a language teacher that is conveyed through all the different sculptures and items in that building. It was lovely. So we were at Westminster Abbey, and then we went into the gift shop. And if you haven't been in the gift shop, the main area is usually where all the people stay. And not everyone knows that there's like a couple different rooms if you keep wandering down underneath and take a few different steps. Anyway, we did that. We went all the way to the end. It's where all the jewelry is at, and there's some books. They're small little rooms, but it's worth going back there. And I didn't have anything in mind. I was just taking it all in. And of course, it's the Platinum Jubilee this year, and we'll be celebrating and talking about that later this week during Brit Week. But something just caught my eye, and as when you travel, you realize quickly what you need and what you don't have, and what's working well as far as your totes, your certain makeup bags, your clothing items, whatever it may be. And I realized that I needed a smaller little toiletry bag for my carry-on when you go through security, just to have it easily accessible, but also on the plane for a long trip. And I came across this small little, it wasn't called a cosmetics bag, but it was made out of tapestry, and it was made in Cornwall, which was fantastic. So it was something that was made in England, and it was made out of this beautiful tapestry print. And it wasn't that expensive, but at the same time, it had a whole bunch of memories for me since I had been there now with my mom. And so I purchased it. So it's one of those things where the tangible item is not just the thing, it's the memory, and it's also serving a purpose. So that's a tangible thing that caught my eye. And another thing is, back to my previous point, taking in the beauty of the countryside and letting it remind me to slow down, that is where I find my calm, where I center my peace, and to return to that often, not occasionally. And so that happened frequently when I was at Sissinghurst Castle Garden, frequently. And we wandered by ourselves. My mom and I are both gardeners. And so we said, I'll see you in 2 hours. We both did our own thing. And then we met at a common place after, because we both have different interests. And then, of course, we'll talk about it afterwards, which was lovely to do. And our eyes are drawn to different things because we have different climates. We live in different climates for our garden. And what I loved about this is that I was able to just draw inspiration from a garden that has been around since the 1930s and see different ways of using bulbs, color combinations, just different details in what is a fairly less formal garden. They've started stepping away from being such a formal garden and going back to the way the garden was originally designed, which is to my taste. And it reminded me that I can't take this garden home, but wow, the gift of having a garden, having life around you, and that it's evanescent, just to savor and appreciate that. And I bring that home with me and savor my own garden, every stage of it, more so than ever, because right now, the daffodils are winding down, but the roses are getting close to blooming. And just to take that all in and appreciate that. So trust what captures your awe. Number 9, have a classic trench that fits your stature and complements your skin tone. You will wear a trench in nearly every season. Cinched up with a scarf in the winter, left open and layered over the top of your spring or fall outfit. It is ideal for traveling as well during the summer, for sprucing up your comfy outfit that you're going to sit and sleep in for hours on that long flight. I saw trenches everywhere in both Paris and in London. And not all of them were cinched up. Most of them, because the weather was warm, were not cinched up, but they were looking sharp. Men and women. Now, when you look at different styles online, and I do recommend investing. When you're able to invest in a good trench, you will have it for the rest of your life. Get one that fits your height. So I actually, because I'm tall, do not have a standard length trench. And I was so grateful. I went into, this was a handful of years ago, 2017. And I ended up getting a longer length Kensington Burberry coat. So not the traditional length, because it would have cut me off at a really weird place on my thigh. And so mine goes to just below the knee, but it's not a long trench. It fits my stature. And then you also make sure that the color tone, I didn't get a traditional khaki trench. I got a slightly different color, so it fit my skin tone. And therefore I can wear it with whatever. And my clothing complements the trench, complements my skin tone. If you take the time to figure out those details, you will only have to buy a trench once and you will wear it forever, and it's well made. It really will be with you the rest of your life. So it might seem expensive up front, and you may not be able to get anything else for the rest of the year, as was my case, which was fine because I'm still wearing that trench, and I wore it on the plane over there, and I wore it around London. I loved it. So anyway, have a classic trench that fits your stature and complements your skin tone. It's worth the investment. Number 10, whilst in the country, leave windows open at night. So not in the city, because it might be very noisy, but in the country, leave them open at night so that you are gently awoken by birdsong. Now, yesterday I posted a detailed video and all sorts of images, photographs of my stay at the Pig at Bridge Place in Canterbury, or just outside Canterbury. And we stayed there for one night, and you can watch a video and you can see all the photographs. But what was prevalent the entire time we were there, and granted it's because partially we are there in springtime, is the bird song. It is magnificent. It gently woke me at about 5 o'clock on the morning we woke up there. I didn't wake up fully. I went right back to sleep. It was just a melody of comfort and soothing, tranquility. I don't know how to say it without sounding, oh my gosh, it was just amazing. And I leave my windows open when I'm here in Bend too, to wake up to the birdsong, and I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. It is just life-lifting. So that's number 10. Now I have 2 sponsors I'd like to introduce you to, and I'll be back with the remaining 10 life lessons I learned on my recent trip to England on the other side. I'll see you in 2 minutes. Bombas' mission is simple. Make the most comfortable clothes ever and match every item sold with an equal item donated. So when you buy Bombas, you are also giving to someone in need. Bombas designed their socks, shirts, and underwear to be the clothes you can't wait to put on every day. Everything they make is soft, seamless, tagless, and has a luxurious, cozy feel. There's a pair of Bombas socks for everything you do. They come in tons of options, like comfy performance styles for every sport and activity that keeps you moving. And I have Bombas socks on right now for my walks, for working out in the yard. I wear them constantly, and they do not wear out. Bombas also makes t-shirts and underwear, and their t-shirts are made with thoughtfully designed features like invisible seams, soft fabrics, and the perfect weight so they just hang right. And did you know that socks, underwear, and t-shirts are the 3 most requested clothing items at homeless shelters? That's why Bombas donates 1 for every item you buy. Go to bombas.com/sophisticate and get 20% off your first purchase. That's Bombas, BOMBAS.com/sophisticate for 20% off. Again, that's bombas.com/sophisticate. If you're looking for skincare and beauty products that are high performing, but also have skin loving ingredients that are clean, then check out Thrive Cosmetics. No parabens, no sulfates, no phthalates. They are 100% vegan and cruelty free. And cause is in the name for a reason. Every purchase supports organizations that help women thrive. I've enjoyed using their Liquid Lash Extensions mascara. One of the few beauty items I use is mascara, and there's a reason why it is their best-selling product that has more than 15,000 5-star reviews. My lashes look longer, and there is no clumping, smudging, or flaking. In fact, they mimic the look of lash extensions without damaging glue or expensive salon prices. Thrive Cosmetics also sells skincare products. With spring having just begun and summer around the corner, their sunproof 3-in-1 invisible priming sunscreen is a wonderful way to reduce the amount of products you use and protect your skin while prepping makeup beautifully. The primer creates the perfect smooth canvas for makeup and is proven to extend the wear of makeup up to 16 hours with a blurred velvet matte finish that looks freshly applied all day. For every product purchase, Thrive Cosmetics donates to Help Women Thrive. Bigger Than Beauty focuses on helping women who are emerging from homelessness, surviving domestic abuse, fighting cancer, and more. As a Simple Sophisticate listener right now, you can get 15% off your first order when you visit thrivecosmetics.com/sophisticate. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/sophisticate for 15% off your first order. Number 11. Welcome back. Here we go. Number 11. This is something I don't have, but I realized I needed. And I'm waiting to save up for this item, but it is to add a Chelsea boot into my capsule wardrobe for 3 seasons. So for fall, winter, and early spring for my outfits, because this Chelsea boot has a block heel. It's about 1 inch, maybe 2 inches, depends on what you want. It's usually just about 1 inch, 1.5 inches. And it can be made in a bunch of different fabrics, but a lot of times it's suede, or it could be something similar to suede that can withstand the elements, but it does not have to be suede. And it's just a boot that gives you style, but it also is perfect for inclement weather. You can wear jeans, you can wear it with anything technically. I realized I need that. Now, the weather was very kind to us. It was very nice. So I actually didn't need to. I wore a lot of flats because it was actually 60-degree weather, sometimes 70-degree weather. But I definitely realized that if I'm going to be traveling to England or France outside of summertime, this is a boot that I need. And that I don't have. So that's number 11. Add a Chelsea boot to my capsule wardrobe for 3 seasons. 12 is all about gardening. Gardening. Keep gardening, keep learning, keep nourishing your mind and being. England has so many gardeners of all sorts in all places, city, country, suburban. There is a love and an appreciation for gardening. Granted, their environment makes it a little easier than some places because of the rain, but the life benefit of gardening, of holding you in the present, we've talked about this many times here in the blog, was just reaffirmed to me. And I came home even more excited to be back in my own garden. So that's number 12. Number 13, make time to visit the theater when you're in the city. Now, I love the theater, and every time I've been in London, so I've been in London 3 different times now, I've gone to a play every single time. The first time was, yes, Prime Minister. Loved that comedy. And the second, it was a play with Martin Freeman, who plays Watson in the more modern Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch. And it was called The Labor of Love. Wonderful dramedy, so comedy drama, set when a newspaper journalist and romance involves, and it was a lot of fun to watch, especially seeing him on stage. And then this time around, we went and saw The Mousetrap, so the world's longest running play. This is the play that's written by Agatha Christie that debuted in 1952 and has been at St. Martin's Theatre since 1974. The theater in London is different. For me, it's different than what it's like in New York City. These theaters are just as grand, but they're smaller and more intimate. And they are right in the heart of the city, which I know that's the same thing in New York. They're right there on 42nd to 44th Street, or, thereabouts, close to Midtown. But the theaters are bigger, at least the ones I've gone to in New York. And these ones are more intimate. Doesn't mean that they're not more special. They are so special. They are so unique. And if you find yourself not staying close to the theater district, to the West End, you take the tube. I took the tube in 2012 because I did not live close to, I was in Maid Vale and I needed to get to the theater and it was so easy to do. But this time around we were at the Savoy and like I said, it was just a couple blocks away. St. Martin's Theater was just a couple blocks away. And it was just a lovely way to spend just one night in the city. And so many great shows are out there. Oh my goodness, so many great shows. I always walk away just with a new idea, with a greater appreciation for something. And what was fun about being at the Mousetrap was it was just a sold out show and it just continues to go and go. It's just absolutely amazing. But we were sitting by people who were from Sweden and then some that were from Britain. And at the intermission, all of us were chatting with each other. We didn't know each other about, well, who do you think did it? And we were trying to solve it right there in our little area. And that kind of seemed to be the theme around the theater. Everyone was trying to solve it amongst the group that they were sitting in, even if they weren't with those people. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. All right, so that's number 13. Number 14 is visit, spend time, and enjoy the beauty of the gardens throughout Britain, not only for ideas, but for rejuvenation of the mind, the eyes, and the being. Whether it's going to Hyde Park or Regent's Park in the city, whether it's going to a National Trust garden like Sissinghurst, or going to an RHS garden, which there are many. Find a way to get to a garden or a park in England and find a breath, no matter how well your travel's going. And I take this inspiration to my everyday life. Get outside every single day, no matter the season. Get outside. I find taking a walk helps clear my head, calm me down, even if it's just around the neighborhood. Get outside, feel the breeze, hear the bird song. It's good for your mental well-being. 15, an umbrella. Find and invest in a quality umbrella, whether it's foldable or traditional. Now, later this week on British Week or during British Week, I'm going to share with you the place to go buy your lifetime investment umbrella. Something I did this time around and I did online during the pandemic because I love this company. But you're going to need an umbrella when you're in London or England. I now have a foldable one, which I will be traveling with, or that I travel with, that's easy to keep on my arm or in my purse. And have a good one. And some of my friends have said, I don't like umbrellas because they, poof, and they take up too much space. Everyone's different, and I think that's a Pacific Northwest thing. We just bring our hoods. We wear our hoods. I'm sorry, hoods for me are not stylish. And I can't see peripherally very well. So I bring the umbrella and I get my shoulders are then covered. My purse is then covered from the rain. And it slows me down. Again, I'm not rushing. Granted, have a hoodie if you're going to be taking a bike ride or, you're outside working out or something. I get that. But if I'm dressed and I'm doing errands and I have my nice clothes on, which I always usually do when I do my errands and go about town, I bring an umbrella. Now, it doesn't rain that much in Bend, but my goodness, I go to Portland a lot and I want to find the rain. I'm someone who will seek out the rain. So I always have an umbrella, but an umbrella that works really well. So the company I'm going to introduce you to is called James Smith & Son. And they are one of the oldest companies that's still running that has been making umbrellas in London since the early 19th century. And I took a video tour of it. So be sure to stop by the blog later this week to check that out. Their umbrellas are so well made. They're handmade. They're just gorgeous. That's number 15. 16, spend time in the countryside. I know I keep talking about this, but this one's more for the traveling component. If you're going to London, hop on a train and get out in the country, even for a night, and see the beauty. It will make London even more special. It really will, because you're that close to London, a train ride away. But it's just, I think it's just like in France. Get out in the countryside in France too. Get out of Paris. Paris is fantastic, but the countryside is just magical. Number 17, savor the train ride out to the countryside. I love this, especially as an American, where we don't have trains or transportation. We have to drive our car everywhere. Or ride a bike, which I don't have a bike, and I don't feel safe enough on a bike to do that. But I know a lot of people do that, and I think that's fantastic. When you're on the train, you grab your newspaper or open a book or take a nap even, and you're just appreciating not having to commute as the driver nor having to be alert while you're driving, and just be amongst fellow travelers on the train. This saves time, it reduces stress, that's the big one, and it stretches your ability to see more of Britain because there is so much more beyond London. I love the time on the train, and it's always really hard for me to come back home to the States and have to drive everywhere. I do get more stressed when I know I have to drive. I would prefer, to be on a train, a bus, or a plane, and if I can trust it, obviously. And that's the thing. We just don't have a reliable means of public transportation like that. And so that's why I really love the train system in Britain. It's fantastic. Number 18, less driving, more walking and connecting. So to that point, what I love about being on a train and the tube or, being in public transportation is seeing and being around humanity and nature. Consciously choosing a place to live and work that does not require so much time in your vehicle. I just find that one of the primary differences of why I'm drawn to the French and the English culture is this constant engagement with the community. You may not be talking to anybody, but you're all in this social contract, moving through your day, being aware that other people are living their lives and not being in this metal box. And then you easily become upset and you don't see them as human when they're in their car for some reason. It's easier to not see them as being human. And that's why I think I struggle when I come home with that aspect. So that's why I'm really thankful for the neighborhood that I have, because we're always out and walking. In fact, yesterday I was out walking with my neighbors. They have a new puppy, and so their kids were walking the puppy, and I was walking Norman and talking to the parents. And we ran into another neighbor with their dog, and we ran into another neighbor who was talking about the other neighbors who were coming home from their travel. And because we were all outside talking, we weren't in our cars. None of those conversations would have happened if we were in our vehicles just driving into our garages. So that's number 18. I'm trying to live with less driving and more walking and connecting. Number 19. When a moment of calm and comfort is needed, visit a museum and wander, stop, just letting the art guide you. We did this both in France and England. In England, we had a couple hours between being at Westminster Abbey and our afternoon tea, and so we walked up to Trafalgar Square, and we went to the National Gallery, and we again went our own ways and just let the art draw us. And I had watched the documentary on Van Gogh's sunflowers, his 4 sunflower paintings, and one of the sunflower paintings is in the National Gallery, and it took on a whole new significance to me this time I saw it, because I'd seen the history in this particular documentary, and it was just, it didn't matter how many people were in that museum. And this particular painting was drawing a lot of attention. I just was loving being in its presence. And then in the Impressionist wing, I'm always drawn to the Impressionists, it seems. I just stood and took in one of Monet's water lilies. Just stood there, maybe for 5 minutes, and just took it in. To that point, while we were in Paris, we went to l'Orangerie, as I shared in last episode 328. Those paintings in those 2 rooms were just hard to put words to it. So if you need to catch your breath, if you need a moment of calm, if you need comfort, even if you've seen these paintings before, go to a museum in your local neighborhood, wherever you are, wherever you find yourself. Walk into some kind of a gallery or museum and let the art guide you. Last but not least, number 20, my company, my soul company. So long, this is kind of back to the point that began today's episode about where we feel most connected and where we feel lonely. My company, so long as I embrace my true self, is wonderful company, whether on my own or with a chosen companion. That was the biggest life lesson that was cemented for me. I've held that loosely and more clearly in my hands with every passing year, but this trip really solidified it for me. And I'm grateful for that. My company. And so I speak to you, your company. is wonderful company, whether on your own or with a chosen companion. I hope something spoke to you in today's episode. I hope that you're able to travel soon wherever it is that's calling your name, no matter how long or how short, no matter how you get there, no matter what you do. I hope you're able to do it and come away or return home with life lessons that draw awe, that elevate your life, and deepen your gratitude for the life that you get to live. All right, I have a petit plaisir that I think you're going to enjoy. I'll be right back to share it with you. So this week's petit plaisir, the petit plaisir to kick off British Week, is a film called The Duke. And I have mentioned this film multiple times on the Simply Luxurious Life, on the This and That, the Friday This and That post, thinking it was going to become available. I first put it out, I think it was in mid-2020. Then it was 2021, last fall. And then I talked about it in February. Well, finally, in the States, as of the end of April, The Duke is now in select theaters around the States, around the country. It became available, I believe, in Britain in February. And it was quite the hit when it was debuted in, I think, late 2020. But because of the pandemic, it's been delayed. But it was worth the wait. I had the chance to go watch it over the weekend. It's playing at a small boutique theater just outside of Bend. And it was pretty popular here. They held it for 2 weeks, which I'm tickled to hear. The film is set in 1961 England. Kempton Bunton is played by Jim Broadbent, and he is a 60 or thereabouts years old. He doesn't exactly know his birth date because he doesn't have a birth certificate, as he explains while he's testifying on the stand, but he does know where he's born. So that's why I say 60 thereabouts. And he's a man who has a difficult time holding on to a job for too long, and it's not because he's not a good worker. He's a fine worker, but it's due to his penchant for standing up for the rights of his fellow workers and citizens, which is often not what his bosses want, nor his patrons when he becomes a taxi driver. He just talks their ears off, and and he doesn't take cab fare from some people because they're veterans, and he doesn't think it's fair, and he's still going to drive them. Of course, the company isn't happy with him for that. So he loses these jobs not for no other reason than he's just thinking about the other person. And he acquires the much talked about in the current news, the painting by Francisco Goya of the Duke of Wellington. I say acquires for a reason. I will share no spoilers, so do not worry. So this painting was on display at the National Gallery. Bunton steals it, or so he says, and sends a ransom, and he has it in his possession, and sends a ransom asking not for money for himself, but rather, quote, saying that he would return the painting on condition that the government agreed to provide television for free to the elderly. Now, I think it's important for those living in the States, to understand how the BBC works. So for us here in the States, this began after World War I. The BBC, or the British Broadcasting Corporation, began providing not only news service via radio and television, but more predominantly entertainment programs. In fact, their news programs are only making up 10% of their programming. Even to this day, all Britons receive the many channels for a small tax, or what they call license fee, an annual license fee, regardless of their age, but they must have a license to watch it. So there's something that's in the TV, they get a license and then they can watch it. Now, just to give you an idea of how much that tax is currently, right now it's £159 a year. If you have a black and white TV, it's £53.50. Now, this is a frozen price for the next 2 years as determined by the members of Parliament. And I include a link to a post that details what the charter agreement of the BBC is with the government and how the funds are used and why you can be prosecuted if you do not have a license, as Kempton Bunton did not have. And this is how the film begins. He's in trouble for not having a license for the BBC, and it says that he has signal coming to his house, but he says, no, I'm not paying for it because he has his reasons, but essentially it costs too much money for people over a certain age. This is absurd. Now, this still continues today. You have to have a license to watch the BBC. But Kempton Bunton's efforts were not in vain, because I want to share with you, as of August 2020, any household with someone aged over 75 who received pension credit will be entitled to a free TV license paid for by the BBC. Currently, all households with people over 75 are entitled to a free TV license. And this was largely what he was advocating for. And it eventually came to be, but it took some time. I read a wonderful detailed article about the BBC, and there are some struggles going on right now in the BBC and to keep it afloat. It was in the New Yorker, and I will provide a link to it if you'd like to read it. It was a detailed article that helped me understand the history, first of all, of this broadcasting company, but also how it's seen in society, in the English society or British society. Okay, but back to the stealing of the painting of the Duke of Wellington, which to this day is the first and only painting stolen from the National Gallery in London. Now, this movie is based on true events. The details revealed in the movie had just recently come to light as to exactly what happened. And while I'm not going to share any spoilers, needless to say, it is a heartwarming film that will restore your confidence in humanity, both on the side of the citizen and the side of the government operating through the democratic process of justice. In fact, after watching the film, I just want to share this little anecdote. So like I said, I went and watched it this past weekend. There were a couple of moviegoers who had just seen the film with me, not with me, but in the theater. And after seeing the film, expressed their enjoyment of the story and conveyed appreciation for the tone as well as outcome that indeed did happen, as this is based, as I mentioned, on a true story. And then one woman went on to say, and I just have to say this because it just made me chuckle, the English play the English so well. And I just, like I said, it made me smile. Then they went on and they talked about how malleable Helen Mirren is as an actress, as she plays a supporting but significant role as Bunton's wife and disappears into Dorothy Bunton, all but the fact that Mirren's visage is just so memorable. Her face is just so memorable. It's hard not to see her, but she does have a bodysuit on as well, and they may have done some prosthetics to her face. I'm not sure. I was looking closely at it. I think, though, that they did. But regardless, she and Broadbent light up the screen, even when she is reprimanding him for losing his job yet again. And their young son, Jackie, who is played by Fionn Whitehead, and you may remember him from his leading role in Dunkirk back in 2017, he becomes a favorite, for me anyway, in the film, as well for his admiration and affection for his parents. Now, speaking of their son Jackie and how this story is just now becoming well known, while the 50th anniversary of the theft did receive some news in 2011, it wasn't until Kempton Bunton's grandson, Chris Bunton, which is Jackie's son, learned of the story from his father, who was sharing it with him one evening when he started to just kind of relax and open up a little bit. Not something he talked about often, by the way. Now, upon listening to the story and realizing that it was indeed true, Chris Bunton wrote up a draft of this story, and eventually it found its way to the current screenwriters, who definitely added a lot of polish, even he admits. But the story, while they did take some license and to add a few more comedic touches, how the scenes play out, the storyline are all true. And I've included a link to that interview with Chris Bunton in the show notes if you want to check it out. The one detail that is changed in the timeline is the inclusion of Jackie falling in love with his future wife. So this is Kempton Bunton and Dorothy Bunton's son, Jackie. In the film, it's portrayed that he meets his wife during this time, his future wife, and he proposes to her at the end of the film. But we learn from Chris that his father didn't meet his wife until well after these events had happened, and they didn't marry until 1971. But the screenwriters decided to include her in the storyline, which is actually something Chris said he was very happy about, to have his mother part of the story, because it was partly because of the love that Jackie had for his future wife that made him share some facts, to come clean about some facts that are now in the movie. Anyway, I don't want to say too much more. I'd give it away. Many details from the actual events were included, such as the full-color picture of Kempton and Dorothy's daughter, Marion, who died at the age of 18. We begin the film learning of this death, so I'm not worried. I'm not giving anything away here. This picture of her is the actual picture of their daughter, as well as the scene in which Kempton stands up for a fellow baker at the bakery shop, which ultimately causes Kempton to lose his job yet again. This happened although his grandson stated that the lines that he uttered that were Gandhi's were not actually expressed by his grandfather. All of this is to say, if you haven't seen the film The Duke yet, I am fairly confident you will enjoy it. Jim Broadbent is a thoroughly delightful Kempton Bunton, and the scenes in the courtroom are quite wonderful to watch. And keep in mind, as you watch Kempton's testimony, all of these lines were pulled from the actual transcripts. So, yep, he would have certainly been a joy to listen to, and any jury would have had a hard time convicting him. Here is the trailer for The Duke.
Will the defendant please stand? Kempton Bunton, you were charged that on the 21st of March 1961, you stole from the National Gallery a priceless portrait of the Duke of Wellington by Francisco José de Goya.
Not very good, is it?
We're convinced that the Goya has been stolen by a highly professional, international criminal gang.
Mind your bloomers!
Almost certainly a trained commando.
You all right? Bit of biscuit. One problem.
What's that?
Your mother. I can explain.
I'm shaken.
It's the shock.
Shock, yes, I'm shocked. There's a stolen masterpiece in my wardrobe.
What's he actually asking for?
£140,000.
For what?
Charity.
Good grief.
I'm living with a madman.
I'm tackling social injustice. I'm like Robin Hood.
You're an idiot.
The taxpayer paid for that painting. They could have given thousands to war widows and pensioners. It's for the greater good of mankind.
Mankind? What about your own kind? How long will you get?
I don't know. 10 years.
You could have told me. We could have dealt with it together.
You married young.
I had to marry.
Had to marry.
It was love.
He is not a thief. He borrowed your Goya to do a bit of good in this world. You campaign for pensioners and war veterans.
Every time someone gets cut off from the rest of us, this country becomes a foot shorter. All my life I've looked out for other people and got into trouble for it. But I had faith. Not in God, but in people.
How do you plead?
Not guilty.
For those unfamiliar with court proceedings, that was the plea, not the verdict.
And critics are as well enjoying the film. Rotten Tomatoes gave it 97%. Look for The Duke in a theater near you and walk away with a bit more hope and smile on your face. I hope you've enjoyed this week's Petit Plaisir, where each week ideas are shared to make the everyday all the more enjoyable. Tune in at the end of each episode where I'll recommend a book, a film, a show, a recipe, anything that is a simple pleasure to satiate your sophisticated taste. All right, I want to thank you for tuning in. And if you too are an Anglophile just like me and so many of us Simply Luxurious Life readers, be sure to stop by this week on the blog, as at least 2 new posts are shared every single day for the entire week, beginning on this last 15th of May, running through the 22nd of May. There'll be a brand new episode this Saturday, the 21st, so be sure to tune in. And there are 5 giveaways. So be sure as well to explore becoming a top-tier member, as only top-tier members can enter. Wishing you a wonderful new week. Bonne journée. Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. For more ideas and inspiration throughout the week, visit the blog The Simply Luxurious Life with the shortened URL tsll.co. And to welcome Simply Luxurious Living into your everyday life, be sure to check out my new book, The Road to Le Papillon, Daily Meditations on True Contentment, which was just released in March 2022 and became a #1 bestseller in France Travel and a #1 new release in France Travel in all 4 formats: hardback, paperback, audio, and ebook. For more in-depth exploration of how to cultivate your own unique, simply luxurious life, be sure to pick up my first 2 books. Each are available in hardback, paperback, ebook, and at Audible for audio listening. The first is titled Choosing the Simply Luxurious Life, and the second, Living the Simply Luxurious Life. Readers can now join the more intimate Simply Luxurious Life international community by becoming members of the blog, which provides ad-free unlimited reading and access to exclusive content such as each month's A Cup of Moments video chat, tours of my home, Le Papillon, the regular monthly post, What Made Me Smile, and Saturday Ponderings, as well as the opportunity to enter all of the giveaways during French and British weeks. To stay caught up on all things Simply Luxurious, the podcast, blog post, and the cooking show, as well as receive exclusive news and an extra dose of inspiration to jumpstart your new month, subscribe to the Simply Luxurious Life's free monthly newsletter, which arrives on the last day of each month. And there's a weekly newsletter, a favorite of listeners and readers, which is also free and arrives each Friday to keep you caught up on the recent weekly posts on the blog. Enjoy with a hot cup of tea or a cup of morning coffee and stay in the know about all things simply luxurious. Thank you for tuning in today. And beginning in September 2022, look for 2 new episodes on the 1st and 3rd Wednesdays of each month. So a small change to the day of the week this podcast will be shared, but always the 1st and 3rd week of every month, a new episode to listen to. To be alerted to new episodes and when they become available, follow on Instagram, the Simple Sophisticate Podcast, and only the news about this show will be shared. Until next time, I'm your host, Shannon Ables. Bonne journée.